Louis, of course, final game before Christmas Day itself, obviously one of two that you've got left this year coming up away. First off at Oldham on Saturday, but first off, as usual, I imagine it's been a positive mood. But how have the boys kind of been faring in training, and what's the sort of mood been like? So I suppose it's always a bit of a different time around Christmas as well, even.
The mood's been top draw, to be honest with you. We're a bit disappointed from last week's performance and the result, but the boys have come back in with that refined focus, really, and that passion to, I suppose, get back on the train in terms of that momentum that we want to build. And the boys have put a lot of hard work in this week, and most importantly, the energy's been really high, and everyone's really relishing the challenge tomorrow away to Oldham. Yeah,
and you mentioned Oldham tomorrow, of course, a place that you went a couple of times last year in the trophy and in the league. I think if memory serves correctly, I think they had the pitch relayed in the summer possibly, so I heard good things about that. Obviously it was a bit on the heavy side in January, I think, last year, but how are you sort of viewing that? Because obviously yourselves beat Barnet and Solihull away recently, and Oldham have done exactly the same recently themselves as well.
Yeah, really looking forward to the occasion, to be fair, in terms of, it's a big club with a good fan base and a enjoyable pitch and ground to play at. So that sort of energy and the intensity that brings the group is going to be kind of used in our favour, to be honest with you. That atmosphere that you can get from some of them bigger away grounds. We've obviously done our homework this week, and we know that with their strengths, and they've got some really good players right across the board with real good experience. But on the flip side, we've got our game plan. The boys know their jobs really well, and it'll not look too different from what we normally do, in terms of we'll still be looking to execute our concepts and to play the way and the style that we want to play, which is to control the game as much as possible in and out of possession, and to be really aggressive in them transition moments. But yeah, overall, it's just a really good game. That's going to be a real good testing and marker for us in terms of getting back to a good performance, which will then hopefully lead to a good result.
Yeah, and you mentioned the idea to get back to a good performance as such, obviously off the back of a frustrating result and performance sort of last time out against Halifax. Is that something that you really focus on when speaking to the lads too much, in terms of bouncing back being the old cliche, obviously, but is that something you really refer to, or is it just to kind of wipe it, forget about it, and just try to do what you always do the next game anyway?
Probably a combination of both, to be honest with you. We decided to have a review following last week's game, which was pretty simple and straightforward, in terms of we give the boys key messages that the coaching team had, after analysing the game, that felt was right, without really going into too much depth, because the period before that, the boys had been sensational. Some of the performances individually, but most importantly collectively, carrying out some of the jobs that we've asked them to do, very much so in the last 2 to 3 weeks, to add a little extra flavour to our style. The boys have been, tremendous. So we've had one bad day. Some of the stats really worked in our favour in terms of possession and XG against. But what was obviously the disappointing bit was the performance. So, we bounce back with that clear head. We don't overthink too much, because ultimately we're never too high from a win and we're never too low from a defeat. And any frustration or kind of feeling of bouncing back has always been now done with the mentality of just channeling it more into refining our concepts and our principles, and just to refine our game. And we just will put all our effort into making sure that we lay the foundations for any performance with that hard work and that humble approach, and then look to execute our jobs within a structure across the board.
Yeah, and obviously mentioned training a little bit earlier, but sort of with the last session before Christmas today, obviously a few prizes kind of given out to some of the boys for training related kind of incentives, performances and stuff, and Carl Magner getting a bit of recognition as well, with his playing career now coming to an end and his coaching journey sort of just starting. So I suppose good for you to end the sort of period before Christmas on a bit of a positive note, and just get the boys all in a room together and just having a bit of crack, really, I suppose, at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. Ultimately, first of all, it contributes to the energy that we want to create for tomorrow's game. The mentality of going in there relaxed and just looking to put a show on, essentially, in terms of show people what we've got and what we can do. With the point system, it's something that's coming relatively new or recent. It's probably an updated version of something that we've done in times gone by, and it's just ultimately just to provide that real, I suppose, competitive edge to training, to real try and bridge the gap for the tempo and the intensity that you want to train at in comparison to a game. We don't ever want it to feel like it goes from 0 to 100. I know that you're not going to want people to go flying into tackles, but it's just trying to provide that little bit of that pressure so that boys are performing and boys are working towards something. But then probably the most important thing is that ultimately this group is a family, and you know, it was nice to have our own little version of getting, you know, people together and celebrating some good performances, especially in training, but also as well, obviously, just to kind of, from a collective point of view, say thank you and congratulations to Carl in terms of his amazing playing career, and now he's transitioned to a new role, and ultimately probably we're lucky even more so because we're getting so much more from Carl in terms of now that he's a fully fledged coach within the coaching team. We've just got so much to learn from him. He represents the football club in every manner in terms of his character, that humble, hard-working beginning, and then the football intelligence that he's got, the quality that he's got as a player and a coach now. You know, he encompasses everything that Gateshead Football Club is and wants to be. So it was just nice to kind of to put that on record from the boys, tell them how much we love them essentially, and yeah, that feel-good factor going into tomorrow.
And just touching on tomorrow in terms of the squad and how everyone's looking. I mean, last weekend you picked up a bit of a nasty sort of cut yourself. So firstly, how have you been sort of faring this week, really?
Been resting this week, to be honest with you. The main thing is not to get a contact on it to aggravate the wound or the cut, shall I say, any further. Today was quite a good day because the plan was to do the run and warm-up. And then I pushed Robin Fraser to let me do the non-contact possession, and then pushed that a little bit further to playing the games on the side, and then played in the games full contact, diving around, tackling. So yeah, so in regards to myself, a good day and kind of back in the squad and back in the mix. But you know, we've got, you know, a lot of quality across the board, and also as well we will be at times making changes regardless of if the team is fully fit and people are resting or whatnot this week from training, because ultimately every game we will make tweaks in terms of to carry out a specific game plan or where we want to strengthen a little bit more or exploit opposition's weaknesses. So yeah, and that there'll be changes across the next couple of days. But that's from ultimately a fully fit squad carrying over from the last week's game. So yeah, there won't be too much changes overall.